You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome to the Toronto Sports Rush channel, brought to you by the Bet Rivers Network. I'm Kyle, and today I'm joined by NHL.com senior writer and host of the Rink podcast, Dan Rosen. Dan, it's a bit of a provocative question, and it will go in many directions, but what is wrong with this Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team?
Oh, boy. All right, so we got some time here, right? Okay, let's dig in. Let's dig in. Honestly, this team does not. First off, let's start at the top. They lost a 100-point player in Mitch Marner, and I was seeing some things earlier this season about how, well, maybe they could be better without Mitch Marner because they can be more of a sum of their parts, and they'll play a system. How are you better without a 100-point player when you're not replacing that 100-point player with even a guy who's going to get 60 points, right? 70 points. So you're missing out on that. More importantly, you're missing out on everything Marner did without just the production, driving the offense and, the defensive zone stuff, killing penalties. I mean, this guy finished third. I think it was third or fourth in the Selke voting a couple of years ago, seventh last year. He's an all-around player. He's an impact player. You're not replacing him. So that's number one, and I think that they've been a little bit lost without him. In the power play, I think they've been a little bit lost without him. I think Austin Matthews, when he was healthy, was a little bit lost without him. Not to say that Austin Matthews can't be great without Mitch Marner. He's a great player. He can be, but there's an adjustment period that goes on, and that's the first quarter of the season. They're adjusting to that. So that's number one. They were supposed to have Stolarz and Joe Woll. That was supposed to be their goalie tandem. And I think both of those guys work better in a tandem rather than one guy taking the bulk of it and running with it. Well, Stolarz had to take the bulk of it and run with it. 13 starts, hasn't been very good. I think, among guys who's in, as of right now, among goalies who have appeared in 10 or more games, he's 33rd out of 34th in save percentage. So there's a problem now. Joe Woll is back. But it also lends itself to another bigger problem that the Leafs have, and I think they're just too wide open defensively. I think they're just giving up too much defensively. They don't have the puck enough. They're not sustaining possession time. They used to sustain possession time. They're not doing that now. It makes them vulnerable. Their back end isn't as good. Tanev's been out. It all adds up, right, to a team that's closer to the bottom of the Eastern Conference than they are the top.
Oh, my friend, they are not closer to the bottom. They are actually in the bottom now as of Buffalo's win last night. Let's be very clear about that. But, okay, so in fairness, I was one of those people that speculated that this Toronto Maple Leafs team, in the new version of it without Marner, could be a good hockey team, albeit a different one. I thought maybe Nyes would end up with more points this year. I thought he'd have a faster start. I thought Michelli would step in and get some of these points back. But this has to be more than just the departure of Marner, because this team is playing with a lack of confidence and, as you say, defensively wide open. So, I mean, one of the problems is consistency. They don't put 60 minutes of hockey together, and that's the type of problem that's more correctable than the loss of a single player. How do they move forward and play a full game of hockey?
They got to play, there's a way to play. I mean, you got to play tighter. You got to play more aggressive at times, but you got to play tighter. You got to cover the front of the net. You got to be a little bit more defensive. You got to boil it down to the nuts and bolts of the game and if you do that, your skill when healthy with Matthews and Nylander and Tavares and Matthew Nyes and Domi and Michelli, that'll come out if you play a tighter game. Right now, they're not playing a tighter game. And I think that's the key here for Craig Berube in the second quarter of this season, is to get this team to play a tighter brand of hockey. That's how they'll gain confidence back. Confidence comes with wins. They're not winning enough right now, so they're losing that confidence, or it's gone. It's eroded completely at this point. So get back to the basics, play a defensive brand of hockey, win a battle in the corner, get the puck out. Quick puck movement, get it up the ice, nothing fancy, north-south hockey, right? And then you can let it roll from there. Easier said than done. I'm sitting in a chair here, and I'm telling you this, right? I mean, they've got to be able to go do that. And I think it can be in their DNA. I mean, I think Berube kind of put it in their DNA a little bit last season. They didn't have it previous to that, but he kind of put it in their DNA last season, and I think they just got to get back to that and maybe showing some video of their defensive game from a year ago will benefit this team because it shows that it can be done when they play the system the way that the system's designed to be played. Again, easier said than done.
Is it fair to say that some of the offensive power of the Maple Leafs may be pressing a little bit too much with the absence of Marner, trying to make up for those points instead of just falling into system play?
Well, I think part of it, though, perhaps, but I think at this point, part of it is the understanding that they're not getting their goaltending to bail them out, right? I mean, so if you don't have faith that your goaltending is going to bail you out, then you're going to press offensively and you're going to try to do a little bit more to score. And then the game becomes, can we outscore the opponent? Which when you boil it down, I mean, that's the basis of the game, right? Outscore the opponent. But what I mean is that, can you outscore the opponent by scoring? Can you win the game, but you need 4? Do you need 5 to do it? That forces you to press a little bit. So their goaltending has to be better. And maybe with Joe Woll back now, it'll stabilize, right? I mean, now you can get this tandem, hopefully with Stolarz getting healthy or whatever, they can get a little bit of a tandem going. And maybe that helps and stabilizes where they need to be, because that was the plan going in. And then that plan, got blown up on them before the season even started.
Yeah, it was that tandem that really carried the day defensively for them last year, allowed them to play confident in front of them. Then, of course, the tandem gets lost in the playoffs, things fall apart, and now it's been lost basically for the entire season. Although, in fairness, Woll had a pretty good game in Chicago on Saturday night. He was beaten by a deflection and ended up losing the game, but he was pretty good overall, so maybe some signs of life between the pipes for them.
Yeah, and they're going to need that. They're going to need it, right? Because now it could also give Stolarz a chance to breathe.
Take a breath. Breathe a little bit. So, on the trade market, or is there any pieces they can find? They don't really have a lot of assets they could move around, but what would Trey Living be looking for potentially to solidify what's been rebuilt in the offseason?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, when you're a team in the position that they're in right now, the obvious answer is you look everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I think it does boil down to that. That's where it comes back to, we lost a 100-point player. And yes, we have guys who can pick up some of that scoring slack, and maybe they haven't yet. But we lost a 100-point player. How do you get some of that back, right? How do you find some of that? And because I think it's still within the, like I said, I think it's still within the DNA of the team to be able to tighten things up a little bit. They got to be healthy, okay? But to be able to tighten the game up a little bit, I mean, heck, they lost a 3-2 game to Chicago, right? I mean, so you can keep it a little low scoring and whatnot and get better goaltending. And then I think you do look for, a top 6 guy. They're not alone in that, but I mean, you try to find one who fits with what you're trying to do and can pop the puck in the net a little bit, create a little extra offense for you. It takes some of that threat. It makes Matthews and Nylander and Tavares and Nyes a little bit more threatening if you get another guy who can do it. And that's the Marner effect, if you ask me. Like that, they went from having 4 for sure, Nyes becoming the 5th, right? If I'm doing my math right here, to now having 3 with Nyes becoming the 4th, and makes it a little bit easier to defend them.
Yeah, there does really seem to be a cyclical downstream effect of this loss of Marner because, they have to play a different brand of hockey when they're giving up 4 or 5 goals per game. The goaltenders are feeling pressured. The defense is feeling pressured. The offense presses too hard. It's just a mess from top to bottom. Treliving addressed the media today as promised around the quarter season, and he said mostly generic stuff, talking about too much vanilla action going on the ice, but he has all the faith in the world in Craig Berube. Should he have that faith in Craig Berube right now?
Oh, I think so. I mean, Craig Berube's a proven winner as a coach, and he's been around a long time. He's way too soon. Way too soon, if you ask me, to look at the coach. You can't just look at the coach when the team has a bad quarter. Right? I mean, when the team plays 20 games or 18 games, whatever it might be, that you don't like. It's the coach has put together a good system. The system worked last season. He got a lot out of different guys last year. He got them to play a different style last season. And now you got to believe that coach can do that again. And I don't see why you would look in the direction of the coach right now. You have to look in the direction of the players. And if he's saying too much vanilla on the ice, I kind of buy it. I kind of agree with it. But I think it's just it needs to be less, and this is going to sound bad, I don't mean this, less going through the motions, right? And more assertiveness and aggressiveness on the puck all the time, continuing that with consistency. That's not the coach. That's the players. It's too soon.
Yeah. They're tied for last in the conference right now, but if you take a step back from that, thinking about what level of panic they should be at, they're only 4 points out of a playoff spot. But there's a lot of teams between them, and that's where it gets complicated later in the season. So if now is not the time to panic, how much longer could this continue before they should panic?
Well, I mean, certainly now, panic is too early right now.
Right.
They have to get their game corrected. There's no question about that. But, you know, if the second quarter goes like the first quarter of the season, if they're at the 41 game mark and they're still kind of nibbling around the bottom of the conference, now I think you're really concerned. This isn't a rebuild. This isn't a team that can go trade some pieces away. This is a team that's supposed to go win. And if they're nibbling around the bottom of the conference, now you have legitimate concern about where you're at and what you need to do to address this, because you're going to have to do something. But let's see where they're at in the second quarter of the season. Let's see what they can accomplish here. See if they can figure out a little bit more on the structure and the defensive game, and then the simplicity of moving the puck up the ice,
right,
and getting it deep and playing below the goal line and keeping possession and giving their defense and their goaltender a break.
It sounds almost silly at this level of sport, but it really is just X's and O fundamentals right now that they're not putting together for 60 minutes. So the speculation was, or the hope was in Toronto, that in the offseason, they built this team more in the image of Craig Berube, what he would like to see, because, you know, they played the Panthers better than anyone else in the playoffs last year, but the Panthers just proved to be a tougher hockey team, pushed them around a little bit. But now looking around the rest of the Eastern Conference, which I'd like to do, have younger, faster teams like Detroit and Montreal and Columbus pass them by and set a new mold for what goes forward from now on?
Well, I don't know if they've passed them by, because I don't know that, like, these teams can do this for 82 games, you know, like that. Sure. I think it's too soon to say. I mean, yes, okay, Columbus, I watched their game, part of their game, not the whole thing, but a good part of their game against Montreal, and that was just fun, right? I mean, like, that's just speed up and down the ice. That's fun hockey. Their overtime was just sensational. I know it's 3-on-3, so you're not going to see something like that in the playoffs, but that's just fun hockey. But is that sustained? You know, like, can you do that for 82 games? I mean, you think about Montreal last year. Montreal came out of the Four Nations face-off and went on a tear. And that's why they got into the playoffs. Like, they just got hot at the right time. And now they're going through it a little bit here to try to figure out. And I'm hearing things coming out of there. Montreal, you know, it's just like, you know, we got to get back to the basics. Like, oh, whoa, you lost like 3 or 4 games. Like, it's okay, you know, like, but they didn't do that to get in the playoffs last year. They took like 5 steps from the 4, you know, like they jumped. They took a huge jump from where everybody thought they were going to be last year. And now I think, you know, we hit the first quarter mark of the season, and you're realizing that it's a grind, that it's hard to sustain at the top of the conference and whatnot. And Columbus is going through the same thing. So I got to see it from some of these teams, you know, before I really can believe it. You know, you look at it right now, some of the teams near the bottom, you know, Florida. Well, I mean, like, on the other side of the line, I should say. Florida, Tampa, Washington, Toronto, those are more, you know, we've seen them do it, right? So you got to have a little bit of more. I have more faith that teams like Florida and Tampa and I think Toronto, not so much Washington, will take that step rather than Columbus and maybe Montreal sustaining where they're at, right? Like, so, but that's only because we're basing that on history and what these teams, the experience that these teams have.
Okay, so continuing with a look around the rest of the Eastern Conference, the Toronto Maple Leafs are chasing 15 other teams. And just a reminder to the viewers at home, that's all of them. And so looking around from your perspective, what teams have impressed you the most in the East, and what teams have maybe surprised you the most, either good or bad?
Well, certainly the Pittsburgh Penguins have surprised. Yeah. I did not see the Pittsburgh Penguins being in a playoff spot at the quarter mark of the season, or 19, 20 games into the season, the way they are. That to me is the biggest surprise. I don't know how sustainable that is, but they seem to really buy into what Dan Muse is selling them, and they're getting. And you still have Crosby and Malkin leading the way up front. So I'm not sure, but that's to me is a big surprise of where they're at right now. And the other one is the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins, I think they lost 6 in a row, and they looked just dreadful doing it, right? And then they won 7 in a row. So what are they? Yeah. And now they're dealing with a bunch of injuries. So that's a problem for the Bruins because they're not deep enough to deal with injuries. Guys like McAvoy and Arvidsson and Lindholm, Elias Lindholm. They're not built well enough to deal with significant injuries like that. Like I see the New Jersey Devils, Jack Hughes being out. I think the Devils can sustain for 2 months and be in the, stay above water and be fine, right? But I don't know that Boston can. But we'll see. We'll see. But they've been a surprise to me without question. And the New York Islanders, I guess, are a surprise too. Didn't see it coming. I really didn't see it coming from Matthew Schaefer at this point of the season. At this point in his career, like what he's doing right now it's bordering on historic. Okay, and it's remarkable, and he's become such a force, a driving force for the Islanders, and here they are above the playoff line, on November 18th.
Yeah, so let's shift gears a little bit because the dominant topic of conversation this season, slowly moving forward, is going to be the Olympic break and this amazing brand of hockey we're going to be treated to over in Italy. I want to talk about roster building, and let's focus on Team Canada and Team US. You've talked about this before, but are Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini, are they going to make this team?
So if you look right now, they are without question 2 of the best 14 Canadian forwards, right?
Absolutely.
Like, without question. And if you go by that alone, why wouldn't they be on the team? Now, it comes down to how you want your lines built, how you look at what is needed from a first line, a second line, a third line, and a fourth line. And with the depth of talent that Canada has and how they would situate it with left wings, left shot, right shot, face off, strong side, weak side, all that stuff, right? Does Celebrini and Bedard make the top 6? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that because now you're taking away significant ice time from some significant players, right? I mean,
let me pose to you a question that I've posed to others on here, and it's kind of exactly what you're inferring right now. When you have this embarrassment of riches that Team Canada has, and it's always the topic, they could have 2 teams in the Olympics. People always say that. You only get one, so it makes it very, very complicated. How does the management balance the need for that veteran poise and leadership with the hunger of this youth movement? Because there has to be a mix, and they've made this mistake in roster building in the past where they relied too much on the veterans. Where's the balance, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, the blueprint is the Four Nations face-off, so they're lucky enough to have that, and that wasn't 4 years ago. That was in February.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have that. Now, you look at some of the Four Nations face-off players right now. Brandon Hagel's not having a great start to the season, right? Anthony Cirelli, same thing with Tampa Bay. The Lightning in general are just not having a great start to the season. Marchand is, okay, he's been terrific. Seth Jarvis, I think, has been okay. Where's Travis Konechny in this? Those are the culture driver type players, right? Those are your bottom 6 guys, if you will, the guys who are going to fill the role where need be. Do you take those guys away to fill it with skill but no experience? Like Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard have never played a big game in an environment that requires the big game, okay?
Right.
You talk to me about, juniors in college, and that's fine. Talk to me about the World Championships, and that's fine. We're talking Stanley Cup playoffs, and we're talking Olympics, right? It's a next level stuff. So I understand the point of Well, what if you only bring one of them, right? Well, how do you choose? How do you choose that? Okay. And if you bring both, does one become your extra forward? I don't have a problem with that. I'll be honest. I think both of them should be there. I think they are two of the best 14 Canadian forwards right now, and both of them should be there, and then you figure it out. And you figure out where they slot, because you've also got guys, don't forget, you got guys like Tavares is off to a pretty good start. Bo Horvat's been off to a terrific start. Mark Scheifele is pushing to be on that team. There's a number of guys that are veteran players who were not at the Four Nations face-off who are pushing now to be on that team as well. So that's something to be considered here as well. But look at it. Like they are two of the top 14 guys, and you could take both. And you can say, all right, we're going to play one, and the other one's going to sit, and who's going to watch, and we'll rotate it if we need be, and maybe we'll get both in. I mean, you need to score to win, right? You need to score to win.
Well, and if you look at it, they're not two of the top 14 guys in Canada. They are tied for third and fourth in the world. So I'm with you. I am with you on this completely. I feel like they should be on the roster. I think there's a good balance. A few young guys to supercharge the old guys, pick up with some energy maybe when the old guys are a little tired or something like that. I think that's what needs to be done. But a place where Canada does not have an embarrassment of riches, and it's been trending this way, is in between the pipes. Who's going to start in net for this team?
Well, I mean, you look at it right now. Logan Thompson's been terrific, right? Logan Thompson, to me, is the guy for Canada right now as the number one goalie. And I don't know how you take it. I mean, how do you take that away from him? I understand that he didn't play in the Four Nations faceoff. I understand that Jordan Binnington has got way more big game experience. And Jordan Binnington deserves to have a leg up, very least to be on this team, but to be under consideration for that starting role because of what he's done when the spotlight is on, when the pressure is at its biggest. He's at his best. So you have to believe that will continue. And I also think the Blues this season are just not very good, and so that could impact where Jordan Binnington is at as well. And you take him and put him on a Team Canada, well, all of a sudden he may be that much better too, right? I mean, those things go together. But Logan Thompson, sheer numbers right now, is playing his way into that number one role.
Yeah, and obviously you can't ignore that St. Louis hasn't been very good in front of Binnington, but Washington hasn't been particularly great in front of Thompson either, and Binnington's goals against average is nearly double.
Yeah.
So it seems like a pretty clear decision right now. Okay, well, Russia's not going to be in the Olympics, as we know, so it changes the rivalry dynamics, and obviously because of what happened in the Four Nations last year, the best rivalry in hockey right now is Canada and the U.S. How is their roster development looking?
Well, the U.S. has a lot of different options too. I mean, they have a lot of injuries though. That is a concern here in mid-November of the injuries. Now, obviously, Brady Tkachuk is due back. Matthew Tkachuk is supposed to be due back and plenty of time. Jack Hughes is supposed to be back in plenty of time. Where's Charlie McAvoy at? We don't know right now. I haven't seen an update on that one. Could need surgery. There's a number of different injury issues that the U.S. is dealing with, but they have a great amount of depth of talent up front. They've got guys who were not at the Four Nations face-off who are performing very well. Cole Caulfield, Jason Robertson. Yeah. Robertson's an interesting one, right? I mean, he's got 6 goals in his last 3 games, and he had 3 in his first 16 games. So he's a streaky scorer, always has been, right? Do you take a streaky scorer to the Olympics? What if he goes cold, right? Like, how do you – can he impact the game in other ways? I think Robertson probably can, but the name of his game is to score goals. So,
or what if he's suddenly red hot because he's surrounded by the best players from the country, right? Like,
then you're like,
it's a very difficult,
right? Then you become a genius if you're Bill Guerin. But they have a lot of depth. They're terrific in net. The U.S. has got loaded in net, which is a great problem to have, but you got to make the right call. You can only play like we talked about with Canada, right? Oh, we can have 2 teams. You only get one. Well, we have 5 goalies, 6 goalies. You can only play one, okay? You got to make the right call on that one. But I think the U.S. is in a really good position, save for the injuries right now. But the injuries are not as pressing, I think, for the U.S. right now because, again, we're talking February is when this happens, and the hope is that the Tkachuk brothers, Austin Matthews is another one, Jack Hughes, and maybe McAvoy will be back and playing by then.
One last note on the Olympics before I let you get out of here, Dan. Obviously, we saw a very particular style of hockey played in the Four Nations last year between Canada and the U.S. It was rough, and it was electric. That can't be done in the Olympics based on the rule set for that. So which team holds the edge between these two going into the Olympics where there's going to be a very different style of play?
Well, see, I don't think that there's going to be a big difference in style of play from the Four Nations face-off. I just don't think you're going to see the fights. Like that, you won't.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. You won't, I don't think you'll see the fights, but I think that's where the U.S., I think, might have an advantage, is that they've got guys. I look at the U.S. and say they have more guys who will drag you into the fight without dropping the gloves than Canada does. Canada is loaded with skill, right? Loaded with skill. But do they have enough guys who are going to drag you in? McKinnon will, right? Sure. McKinnon absolutely will. I think McDavid will. He'll do it in a different way, but that's where the Tkachuk brothers, Marchand too. That's where the Tkachuk brothers come in. They bring such an energy to that group, and then you look around and you have some other guys like JT Miller, who's not having a great start to the season with the New York Rangers, but tough, physical, banging boards and banging bodies, winning puck battles, dragging you into the fight without having to drop the gloves, and that's where I think an advantage plays for the U.S. The skill advantage is equaling out. It's closer than it's ever been, but I still lean towards Canada and the skill advantage. But the drag you into the fight advantage, while close, I still think that leans in the U.S. direction.
Dan, we thank you very much for your time and all of that insight. We look forward to having you back. Of course, once again, folks, if you want to see more of Dan's work, he is the NHL.com senior writer, and he is the host of the Rink podcast. Dan, thank you so much for joining us here today on Toronto Sports Rush.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.